My name is Dean Page, and I'm a certified life coach. I help my clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. I've also had the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people. People who have had unique careers, built up businesses, and triumphed through adversity. So one day it dawned on me, why not put the two together? Why not start a show where people can tell their stories of building success and rebuilding from adversity, with the intent purpose to encourage, inspire, and inform others who are working on their goals to fulfill their dreams. Or if I only knew what to call it. Maybe I should make a list. Wait, that's it. The Dean's List. Kinda has a nice ring to it. So I hope you join my guests and I on this upcoming episode of The Dean's List. Hi, for those who know me know that I'm a musician and also a life coach. So needless to say, I was intrigued when I met somebody who said that they were a musical therapist. Talk about taking the best. Hi, that would be that would be my dog, one of the dogs, Faith. Talk about taking the best of both worlds and combining them. What I wasn't expecting is how amazing the conversation was. Usually we get to talk to, get guests ahead of time and kind of go through things. So this way we just did a brief overview, and consequently you're going to get a lot of live reactions just because I was so intrigued with what they were saying, especially the part when she talked about music and the impact it can have on both Alzheimer's and autistic children. Just absolutely blew me away. So I hope you join me for today's guest, Leah Clark-Joy. And I will also say that she is as genuinely nice in person as she is on the video. I had again several high functioning autistic children. There was one time where his parents came up to me, and this was just such an eye-opening thing, and I want to see what you think about this and how it ties in with you. So he came in, and the parents were very nice. The kid was great, and the parents said, "Listen, we just want you to know if such and such," I almost said his name, if such and such all of a sudden goes on the mats and lays down on his back, he's not throwing a fit. If he gets disoriented, if he'll lay down on his back, because the pressure on his back helps him get oriented. I'm like, so I got me being me, like, what are you saying? So they tell me, I'm like, so it helps him when he gets, okay. So I asked permission, because like, can we try something? Because, we did these big forms, and he would remember the moves, but he'd turn in the wrong directions. Okay. It's like, I want to try something. And I put my hand on his shoulder, a little bit on his back, when his parents were there. And he nailed every turn. And it wasn't because I'm, pushing him. I just did that. That sensation helped him. And it was one of those, I don't know what we just saw, but I know it's something. Because it wasn't that he didn't know it. It's somewhere, it seemed like between here and the communication, something got off. Yep. How does that sound to you? And does that resonate at all as far as with what you do?
100%. A lot of the times in sessions with my kiddos, again, various forms of autism spectrum disorder, various XYZ fill in the blank needs that they're in these adapted classes, they'll sit and they have their weighted blankets. A lot of them will wear not noise canceling, but noise reducing headphones. And the reason why the pressure or weighted blankets work, or even just that kind of extra support of your hand on their back is because when it can help calm your parasympathetic nervous system, which will lower anxiety and those hormones that increase anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah, it activates the parasympathetic, and the parasympathetic says, "Oh, hey, I don't really need all these hormones rushing in. I'm okay, I'm safe." And then it kind of goes down. So for a child with autism, that extra layer of pressure probably reduces the XYZ things that are preventing them from, oh, I have to turn left now and not right, because there's so much firing at once. It kind of creates that layer of, oh, okay, I'm secure, I am safe, I'm grounded, and therefore provides more space in their mind to focus on the task at hand.
So, wow, that makes so much sense. So that's one of the things, because instead of just saying focus, pay attention, you know, you turn right,
Mm-hmm.
but they're getting all that reaction. Sounds like what you're saying, almost chemical reaction, if you will, in their body.
Yeah.
So it seems like music, with the music therapy and what you do, can bypass those trigger points for that, or at least help soothe them. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say to an extent for sure. And sometimes we do need that extra layer of the physical of, hey, would you like a weighted blanket? And that combined with the music therapy kind of creates this really good space for them to be in.
I've yeah, I think it's again, I'm fascinated by this. Can you tell? Besides the music, but also the autism. To me, it's the following is my opinion, not necessarily that of anybody else's, but it just seems like there's like such a brilliance in like some of the autistic kids, or in the autistic kid, not just autistic kids, but that there's there. But because it doesn't necessarily, the communication or understanding isn't always the typical of the majority. They get, you know, the gold that's inside never gets discovered, and it just, and I see that a lot even where I work now at time, not with the life coaching, but with other stuff. And I
Mhm.
just, you know, just can, as you're talking, and just see how great what you do can be for them. You know, it's just so
Mhm.
impressive.
Thank you.
It's interesting because sometimes, being at a college where somebody will come in, and they'll have somebody with them, and they're going to get their textbooks, and they have to be reminded, you need to tell them, and all these like codes, or not codes, when they're helping.
Mhm.
Okay, that's fine, we're good. What class are you doing? And it's like flipping advanced calculus 4. Actually, it's just 2 1. And you only, wait a minute. Okay. And yet, if you just listen to them initially, um, they're having a very hard time saying, hi, how are you today? But yet they're doing all that. And I just wonder how many people get written off because they're not, maybe are a little awkward, or it needs a while for them to be able to say, hi, how are you?
Yeah, it's it's hard at times, even with when I was working with older adults, that the appearance or presentation of an individual will at times in others determine their competency.
Mm,
And that's not the case because, in my opinion, if we reduce everyone to just what they were capable, or just, again, the snapshot, we're limiting them to only one aspect of who they are. You cannot define or determine based off of, again, they stuttered through their first sentence, or they asked you the same question twice in the span of 3 minutes, because that's only one facet.
yeah.
yes, that is the tools that they have to work with,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what they're utilizing. If that's all they have left, then good for them. Therefore, you need to then find it within yourself the grace and space to, as I keep saying, meet them where they're at, because you're not trying to, at least I'm not trying to therapize you. I'm not trying to do music therapy at you. I want to do music therapy with you. This is not a hierarchy of I'm here, you're here, and I'm coming in to, oh, make light and blah blah blah. And sometimes that does happen, and that's great, and I'm happy that that occurs. But I'm coming here to same level of the playing field. I'm a person, you're a person. This is what I bring, this is what you bring. What can we do with it to then therefore again equip you even more so in your everyday life?
So cool. It's just so impressive. So there's random, obviously music, sound waves, vibrations. You know, we all know that. Blah blah blah. Especially if you're by a very big speaker or bass speaker, usually, or not, that type of stuff. Do you think is there any studies, or are you aware of anything that, because music is just has such a power? Is there anything with like the vibrations and the physics of the mechanics and the physics of music? You think it's just random, but I am
Yes,
curious.
I definitely do not know off the top of my head all the science behind it, but I do know they actually make chairs. Picture a kind of a massage chair, not as bulky at the bottom, that reclines, and there's one that does so, and you recline, and there's speakers built into the chair so that when you put a song on, it'll
Okay.
play. And it's, you know, when you listen to headphones and it's sometimes it'll be in the left and the
Yep.
right versus all around sound. So it kind of does that within the speakers in the chair. And off the top of my head, I cannot recall what it is, but I remember my supervisor, they had a couple. She worked in the VA down in Florida, and that was really impactful. And she said, not only for, of course, the clients, but then they got to try it out first and see, okay, what are they feeling? And oh, heavy metal really feels like this. And when you listen to classical, you can feel it this way. So, yeah, there is science behind it. There are undoubtedly studies to back that up. And therefore, that's why chairs like that exist. But it is something for
Hmm.
sure.
It's Do you find music? How can I say? Like obviously people speak different languages. I'm saying that now because I still have to take Spanish too. Uh, I really want to learn it. Ironically, I'm telling you, every time I talk, it sounds Italian. Go figure. It really does. It's just don't know why. Maybe too much time in Long Island. But anyways, so there's different. You can't get mad at somebody for if they only know English and you're speaking Spanish to them, or the other way around. Well, you can't get mad, but it's not helping. So sometimes learning the language to communicate. Do you find out music in and of itself, even without lyrics, but music can get bypassed through some of those communication barriers?
100%. And even no communication, again, I've had some children who are nonverbal and able to have choices that they can point to, or if they have a device that their words are on there, or if they decide none of those are good for the day, to just kind of, then you have to be very aware of their body
Hmm.
language. But within that, you can create so much, and there's still opportunities for them for self-expression musically. I'll kind of put stickers on the piano. We'll say we're in D Dorian for the day. I'll mark that on the piano, and they'll just kind of do their thing, and I will create an ostinato or ongoing repetitive. rhythm then to support that. And then within improv, they're playing this one line over and over again. I'll reflect it back and mirror it. And then they'll do something else and I'll mirror that. So, yeah, I really do think not only does music bypass it, but it creates opportunities for different communication to emerge, stuff that we would not typically think of.
Oh, that's even better because it not only bypasses the blocks, but it actually opens up communication.
Mm-hmm.
Good answer. And we're not talking Family Feud,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Some of those answers, good answer.
Was it a good answer?
Name somebody's favorite color. Peanut butter. Great answer. What? Okay. There goes that sponsorship, but that's okay. There's, in the Old Testament, the stories about King Saul, who had some issues, to say later, and they brought in this I think it's harpist, a musician, David, to play, and it soothed them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you resonate with that at all? Is there what do you think of that story, or that, it's a story, but that scenario?
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, when you think back to those times, or even just what warfare looked like back, music was a big part of that. And in the ancient stories of, for example, Greek and Roman, you would send out your musicians first, and everyone had their, beats going, whatever, what have you, first, because that creates a certain atmosphere, a certain experience for not only those involved, but then who they're going to hopefully triumph over and whatever territory they're trying to claim. And so, yeah, 100%. Though, as much as it can cause those feelings within warfare, the flip side is that it can also then calm if you're using music in the context of Saul. If you have all these high energies and emotions, experiences, mental blocks, for lack of better words, in the moment, then music coming in and being that calming presence and environment. And also, I think specifically to the heart of the musician and their intention. There's a difference between playing music for the sake of it sounding good and playing music then again to meet someone's needs. So in the case of Saul, I think again that musician who came in where their heart is at and the humility to come and just simply be. Again, I wasn't there, but I would guess
Neither
that
am I.
not a
I'm
lot
not
of
that
words
old.
that maybe not a lot of words were said. And so therefore the music was just able to create this blanket and an extra layer within the space to come down from that big escalation, is what I would
It's
guess.
an interesting point about that they used to send out the musicians first, to set the
Mm-hmm.
tone. And probably because they figured the musicians were the most temperamental. So if you can get through them, then
Then you'll make it.
just kidding. Kind of. You have the dream, desire, and talent. Everyone knows you have the work ethic. You have the best training, studio, and art supplies. And you have a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. But you're stuck. I can help with that. Visit DeanPageLifeCoach.com. I help clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. Maybe you could be next. So obviously, I'm sure there's confidentiality and all that. But is there
Mm-hmm.
an example of an experience that you've gone through, or with someone, again, not breaking confidentiality, that just made every single night staying up, who knows how long studying, and that incredible course load that you had, and every ounce that you put into it to be able to do it, that made that worthwhile.
Yeah, 100%, many moments. But I think the big one that comes to mind is that, again, I worked in mainly a secure unit for older adults. And so the age range was early 70s up into the 90s, late 90s. Even I did have a client who was 103, and that was incredible to get to speak with them and hear about their life experiences. I also had a World War II veteran on my unit, and that was just what an honor to be able to
Yeah.
speak with them and hear about their lived experience and all the change that they've seen and the change that, of course, the war had on them. But with that said, it was towards the older side, so 80s and 90s. And we had an individual who was recently diagnosed, and they were making that transition into living here full time. And so, with that, of course, you're losing independence, you're losing your own space,
Mm.
you're losing the comfort of XYZ environment. If you had a yard and now you're here and you have to have someone unlock the door for you to go out in the garden, there's a lot of loss and a lot of mourning. And at times, a lot of anger can come with it, understandably so.
Mm.
This individual was very angry. And it became to the point where the group was fearful of this person. And that was also hard to see because, again, they're working with what they have. And when they weren't very verbal, I think there was a little bit of, it was unspecified, but I would say some Parkinson's just on the tonality of what they spoke and the rhythm of their
Mm-hmm.
speech. And this was at the end of a particularly rough week where this individual had gone into other people's rooms and
Mm.
throwing stuff about, you name it. And this person was not small. They were probably about 5'9", larger, ambulatory, while the others are mainly in wheelchairs, have walkers, or take a while to get from point A to point B, but still moving. And every time this person would come kind of near our group, they would kick a wheelchair or they would bump into someone on purpose, just doing little things. And one time this person though, they came in and they actually sat down. And in the past, I had seen them come sit down for 3 seconds, get back up, and keep moving. But they stayed longer this time. And I remember what song I was singing. I was singing Side by Side. And we're at the end part. And there's a little tag before we play the lick and end it. And I was at the end of the chorus, and they actually sang the last part of it with me. And I remember being so stunned, I almost dropped my guitar. And I looked at my co-intern at the time. She was looking at me as if, do we all just hear the same thing? And then song ended, and then I went into something else, and then they got up, and then they left. But you don't know how much people are watching you, and then therefore what is sticking. And so even the fact that regardless of their behavior and the emotions they were experiencing, they knew that this was an environment where they could come in and be secure and just get a little moment is huge. I don't care if you say a word to me. I don't really care if you throw a shaker at me. If you get something out of it that I can't understand, but that is there for you, that you can come back to and utilize, and
Mm-hmm.
it brings you and fills you with XYZ, then that'll do it for me. And I think as that person got more settled and I was able to talk with them a little bit more, there I just saw a change in them, and it was really great. And I got to hear about the music preferences they did enjoy and things that they would listen to with their loved ones. And so again, even though the behaviors that are being exhibited are hurtful and scary at times, and yes, need to be improved upon for the safety of others, there's something still that's getting planted. And I think that's really great because even though I may not see the fruit of it, someone else will, and they themselves are gaining even while not physically being in that same space. So,
That is actually exceptionally powerful because, I mean, just as listening as you're saying it, some of the actions that they're doing, if they sometimes if you feel controlled or you no longer have control, then
mhm.
you try to overcompensate control over here. So when you were talking about visiting people who are a lot smaller in wheelchairs and bumping into them, as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, that's just control. He's just trying to get control. But
Mhm.
but normally I would think, oh, he's being a bully. But why is he being a bully? Which is something that,
Mhm.
like from the very beginning, when you were talking about how you worded it about, um, where they're at, why are they, what's the reason? Which again doesn't mean you allow it, but if
Correct.
you understand it, then you can help address it. Even though in your way you were doing it through music and through that. Um, so obviously I know you. Um, didn't know some of this stuff. I got to admit, sitting down, talk later. Like, hey, listen. um, so phenomenal musician. It's. I'll tell you that now. I don't. Anybody knows me knows I do not just say that. I really don't. Incredible voice, the whole bit. What got you into? I pointed to this. What What
Mhm.
is it that got you to focus in on here on that?
As I mentioned before, I've been taking voice lessons since I was 7 up and through my undergrad. Music has always been a big part of my life, and for the longest time, I loved performing. I did various little Rotary Club talent shows, things like that locally. And then I hit my sophomore year of high school and I thought, I'm actually not bad at this. Why don't I do this for my life, you know? And at first I was kind of hopped on the whole music performance train. I was like, actually, you know what? Music ed. No, I'll do music ed. And I have a great love and respect for music educators. But the thing that I didn't like is that I realized I would see one batch of kids for a year, send them on their way, and then get another batch. And that's great. But I wanted the ability to build genuine one on one relationships long term, to see you consistently, to see, get to know you and the things that make you you and cultivate that. And then I found out about music therapy and I thought, okay, this sounds great. And so I actually called a local creative expressive arts program and I contacted their music therapist and I asked if I could take her out for coffee. So I took her out for coffee and I came with my list of questions. What does the program look like that you took? Your education background? What is your work home life balance? Hours, populations? And she was more than happy to answer those questions and so much more. And I thought, okay, yeah, I think this is it. And it was only solidified further down the line when a couple older family members in our home, they passed away, and I thought, wow, what what could music do here? What could it look like if we had that? And I remember my mom wanted me to sing in my grandfather's hospital room. I was like, lady, I'm crying my eyes out. I cannot sing right now, but thank you. But that then caused me to think of, okay, well, what if it wasn't me? What if someone else provided that? And then down the whole hospice line and end of life care. And I was accepted to my program for music therapy. And I kind of put that to bed, the idea of older adults and end of life. I loved kids. I was babysitting from a young age, worked in the nursery, at church, did summer camp, you name it. And I so always thought, oh, kids, I want to work with kids. I don't know about older adults. The more I sat with it, death really kind of freaked me out. And I wasn't too keen on the whole idea. But when I was looking at internships and I got to read about Birch Bay Retirement Village and what they had there music therapy wise, and I met with my supervisor, we did an interview. It just really shifted my perspective, and I realized how much could be involved there with music therapy that I never would have thought of before. And how when there's music therapy involved, it just, as I mentioned before, adds an extra layer within that transition from life into death. And it kind of, it's, for lack of better words, because I've been in it, it kind of makes it beautiful. Death is not scary to me now in the way that it used to be. It's something that happens to everyone. And so removing that stigma of all the negative, and there's no doubt that, again, it is hard when you lose someone and all those things that come with it, but to be able to celebrate a person's life in that way and make it interactive for the family. People don't get to die that way usually. Very rarely is someone able to be have their kids sitting there laughing, thinking about campfire stories. When you are able to take even just a snapshot of who they are in that moment, wow. And I've done some legacy projects as well, and that's really wonderful because you get to give the agency back to that individual, and then they know, oh, I'm leaving this CD for so and so. I get to have a say on what part of me is going to be remembered and celebrated. And I think too, with older adults, no one really listens to them anymore. And so just to even have the opportunity to sit down with a World War II vet
Mm.
and say, hey, why did you join the army? How did you get here? Did you enlist? Were you drafted? And I think that's really my why, is people to create space, and again, to do with, not to do to. And I get as much out of it at times versus they do.
Mm.
I'll walk away from a night session and be like, oh my gosh, I'm more grounded. I am more at equilibrium. I'm not as stressed as before, because you leave it at the door, you walk in, you meet them where they're at, and they'll meet you where you're at as well. So it's kind of a really beautiful shared relationship. And yeah, I'm a therapist, and yes, there is a difference between client and therapist, but at the heart of it, uh, it's just humanity and connectedness. And so it's really wonderful to look back and think of where sophomore in high school Leah Joy started, and the various ideologies and preconceived notions that I had, and how those either changed or fell away completely. And it's an ever growing process. I'm never gonna, at least I hope I'm never gonna sit one day and think I've reached it. I know all that there is to know about music therapy. I know all the chords, I know all the scales, I know all the things, because how boring and awful would that be? You get to build and grow as yourself, and then you get to then build and grow and help other people get to where they're going. And so it's kind of this whole tapestry of different parts and different threads and different textures and different moments that kind of create this whole big thing that maybe one day I'll step back and think, oh, well, that is a good texture. Maybe I'll only see a little bit of a corner of it. But for me, that's kind of what it's all about. I don't want to be in a box. So, yeah, that's a very long winded way of saying that's kind of how it happened.
Well, first of all, it's not long-winded to me, if you if you know me. um, keep going back whether to say this or not. Having gone through some going into the hospital and fully not being told you're probably not coming out, it's not upright. When you're talking about the campfire songs and you're singing it and they're both there, one of the things, at least my experience, is you keep thinking it's very easy to think of everything you didn't do and everything you should have did and all that stuff. It's crazy as it sounds, but if you're singing the campfire song and it reminds of the time and you see your kids or whoever that they remember that as a good time, that probably has more impact on them than you will ever know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of hit a nerve on that one in a good way, but like just going, wow, that is just so powerful because and it's odd. I remember, I thought it was something when I remembered the Don Hole with the ukulele thing. When you were talking, I remember like as a teenager, a speaker, Charles Swindoll, and I thought it was we were saying, but he was saying like say biblical times where the family, if it was their time to go, the whole family would get together. Whether it was like Moses or like Joseph and the 12, all the brothers and all that. And then we got so that it's often a hospital and you don't see him or whatever. And you remember him years ago saying it causes more. Again, you're still sad, but at least you get together and you can remember it versus now it's gone. Now you do stuff. So, and that was on a cassette tape. I'll have to probably Google that. What's a cassette tape?
I know what a cassette tape is.
So I mean, I think it's interesting because I think what you're doing is ties in so many pieces of or answers for so many different scenarios that people are going through. It's impressive. You definitely have a passion for it. I think you got a passion for the people, and you see the difference. So being able to combine the two is really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to learn more about it or discuss, with you whether it's something that might be good for them or somebody they know or just wants to know more, how can they get a hold of you and your contact information?
Yeah, message me on Facebook. I'd be more than happy to share my email or even phone number if you want to have a quick chat and just talk about any other options. And also, the American Music Therapy Association, their website is a little outdated in the organization of it. I will say that. However, there are resources on there, and there's also the New England Music Therapy Association, so also by region, based on your location, you can plug that in and you should find a website. And that usually has the places that offer music therapy within your area. And you can go further if that's something you would like to pursue for yourself or someone that you know. And there's many different therapists. They have very different orientations. So find who works for you, find who does not work for you. And that's again because it's not a one size fit all with therapists, and that's fine because people like to do different things. But I would really encourage you to just poke around and see locally because there is a lot more than you would expect. Off the top of my head, there's a music therapy place in Windham, New Hampshire. There is a creative arts organization in Manchester, New Hampshire, and a lot of the hospitals around here, they also have creative arts programs as well. So I encourage you to look that up and see what would be the best fit for you.
That's fabulous. This is where we can edit stuff. You sure you want to give out the Facebook thing?
I don't really check Facebook,
You
so
what?
um yeah, I'm trying to build. Facebook is fine. It's shifted more to more professional page
That's
is
I
ideally my goal.
just double checking. Just, you know what I mean? Because you kind
Yeah.
of, okay, so we're going to come back because I'll come back into it because all they know is your name's how, you know, how they're going to find you. So
Well, what would you recommend?
that's fine. That's okay. I'm
Okay.
just say me. I get Dean Page. You put Dean Page, you'll get anybody with names Dean with pages. It's funny, unless you know me. So um, I'll come back into it. So 3, 2, 1. So for the Facebook page, how do they find you?
Leah Joy Clark. It's just under my name.
Okay. And is this a business one that you do, or a?
It's transitioning into my business one, and then I have a business email that I would send out if people are interested.
Okay, fabulous. And we can put a what do you call it? A thing on the screen for that too, as far as on that. Been amazing. I just absolutely amazing. And one of the hardest things is to not keep moving because I like getting so excited and want to. Oh, wait a minute, what? Um, I learned that the hard way. You got to move in the chair. The What's next for you, and what is it that you want to when you see down in the future for you? What are you thinking of doing?
For next steps, I would really like to work in another retirement home and specialize again with older adults with various forms of dementias and particularly hospice. I'm very interested in going back into that. And with kids, I'd like to take it a step further, and I'm potentially pursuing opportunities to work in a pediatric medical setting. I'm thinking oncology.
Hmm,
Not entirely sure who, what, where, when, and also NICU, because I'm also looking in potentially becoming a doula. So a lot of different avenues that will converge somehow, but I'm very excited, and I'm just so honored to be where I am right now and what I do. So
what's a doula?
a doula is not a midwife. You do have medical training, but it's just kind of who you see for support and you would help through the birth. So I'm not actively helping with active labor, but I'm there as a support system and extra layer who has, again, medical knowledge and information with birth and pregnancy, but not all in the fine details.
Cool.
Mhm.
And then I guess closing my only other question. This is profound now. Is it Bar Harbor or Bahaba?
Bahaba.
Every time you said that, I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, that's the Texan doing a little job at the New England accent. Okay. It's been great.
Mhm.
It has been fabulous. So appreciate the time and from seriously, I so appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been
I cannot
wonderful.
imagine the difference. Someday when you find out the difference you're making, you're going to be blown away by it. So,
Thank
Leah
you.
Clark, Leah Joy Clark. It's a great name for that too, by the way. I got to tell you.
Thank you.
Again, contact information. We'll put it back up, and we'll have to do this again sometime and find out what else you're doing. Cool. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1. You have the dream, desire, and talent. Everyone knows you have the work ethic. You have the best instruments, music instructors, and compositions. But what about overcoming the challenges that are a risk to your incredible potential? I can help with that. Visit DeanPageLifeCoach.com. I help clients get perspective, reach their goals, and change their world. Maybe you could be next.